What if I told you that the loudest enemy you'll ever face doesn't live in the world? It lives in your head. It mimics your voice, knows your past, knows your fears, and waits for the perfect moment to whisper, "You're not good enough. You always mess it up. You don't deserve anything better." But here's the cruel trick. You think that voice is you. It's not. And Carl Jung figured out why. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Not a villain, not a monster, but a part of you. Buried, forgotten, rejected. As children, we were told, don't cry, don't talk back, be nice, be quiet, be good. So we buried the parts of us that didn't fit. The anger, the ambition, the sadness, the pride. But nothing buried stays buried forever. And when those parts aren't seen, they rot. And when they rot, they speak. And that voice, that inner critic, it's not some demonic force. It's the voice of a younger you, still waiting to be heard. Let me tell you a story. There was a boy named Elijah. Brilliant, sensitive, curious. But his father only praised toughness. "Stop crying," he'd say. "Act like a man." So Elijah learned to swallow his feelings. He buried his fear, his sensitivity, his softness. Years passed. He grew up, became successful, but every time something went wrong, every time he failed, even slightly, that old voice returned. "You're weak. You're not enough. You're a disappointment." He thought it was reality. But it was just a child, echoing through time. Jung said, "The shadow is everything about ourselves we do not know." But worse, it's everything we don't want to know. You've been taught to fix yourself. Affirmations, hustle, discipline. Silence the inner critic with success. But here's the paradox. The more you run from the critic, the louder it becomes. Because what we resist persists. And that voice isn't asking to be silenced. It's asking to be understood. The self-help world sells you a dream. Be confident, be fearless, be positive. But the shadow doesn't want your positivity. It wants your honesty. Jung said people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But that's where your healing is. Not in rejection, in reunion. Jung's method wasn't about defeating the critic. It was about integration, shadow work, not erasing the pain, but facing it without flinching. It starts with this question: what part of myself have I denied? Your inner critic is often the voice of a part you tried to exile, the angry version of you, the jealous one, the scared child, the wounded teen. Jung didn't believe in slaying dragons. He believed in inviting them in for tea, to sit with them, listen, name them, because what is named loses its power. Look around. The artist who never shares their work, the writer who edits the same paragraph for months, the man who loves someone but never says it. They're not afraid of failure. They're afraid of the voice inside that says, "You're not good enough to be seen." This is why so many talented people stay invisible. Not because they lack skill, but because the inner critic has convinced them they'll be exposed. You've seen it in others. But what if it's happening in you, too? When you embrace the shadow, something strange happens. The inner critic softens. Not because it's gone, but because it's finally seen. You understand its voice isn't law, it's memory. And you start choosing for yourself. Not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because you're finally free. Jung's entire philosophy pointed to this. You do not become whole by being perfect. You become whole by reclaiming what you've rejected, not fighting the inner critic, but walking beside it. So now I ask you, What voice are you still believing that was never yours to begin with? Whose expectations are you still carrying? Whose shame are you still defending? Because if you don't ask these questions, the inner critic will answer for you. Every time you try to speak, to love, to create, to rest, but once you face the voice, it loses its control. Not because it disappears, but because you remember who you are underneath it. That voice isn't your truth. It's just your history, echoing through your present. And now, it's time to write a new one.